right. So let's talk about detailing this guy. All right. So whenever it comes to detailing things like skin and pores and things like that, there are a few different techniques. There are a few different philosophies that people take when it comes to things like this. The first of those paths that you can take to achieving pores, wrinkles, and things like that on the skin is some people will actually sculpt it into the model, right? Which is what I'm going to show you guys how to do now. Some people take another approach of instead of sculpting those things into the model, into the high poly version, the high density mesh of the model, they will instead go and do that in the texture process, right? So whenever we're in our substance painter, substance whatever package we're using to texture it, Photoshop if that's what you're still using, Marmoset, right? Whatever you're using to Mari, right? Whatever you're using to texture it, people will then paint those details in using alphas, using different masks, and things like that, right? So there's two different approaches to adding these kind of details into the model, right? So there are other things that I want to add when it comes to details. Another thing I want to do is show you guys how to add maybe some more accessories, right? With this character, we've added things like I've shown you how to add eyes with our subtools, and I've showed you how to add a hair with fiber mesh. So those things are relatively easy to do, but I want to kind of just show you guys how you can go about kind of just more fleshing out of some of these characters that you have. So one thing I want to do that I think would be cool for this character is if he had some like maybe a nose ring or something, kind of like a cow, maybe even some earrings that he has as well. So I want to add some more detailing to him, give him a little bit more life, like he's lived and he's got other things kind of going on. So let us begin with, let's just append, uh, I think it's called a donut, but we're going to start by appending some of this stuff. Let me append, where's my append tool? Append. And okay, it's a ring 3D. So I'm going to append a ring 3D. Ooh, cool. Very cyberpunkish. All right. So here is our ring 3D here. And right now, the reason that my object disappears is because, as you guys can see, I have every one of these eyes selected, right? These eyes, they're all toggled on. And if you deselect whatever the object is that doesn't have the eye selected, it's gonna disappear, right? So what you're gonna want to do is make sure that whatever object you want selected to show, it's got that eye turned on, right? And these are little things that I want you guys to remember because if your model or something disappears, well, what happened? Well, you just have the eye turned off, or you moved off of the character or the subtool or the tool itself, so it disappears. So turn it back on, use that eye. I'm gonna just scroll back down to my ring here, and what I want to do is I'm gonna use my move tool, right? So if I hit M on my keyboard, whoops, I did not have no board turned on. Let me turn on no board. My bad. All right, no board's on. All right. So I'm gonna hit M on my keyboard, or actually it's W. Whoops. I'm gonna hit W on my keyboard to get to the move tool, right? And now I can move my object about. All right. So the first thing I want to do is I kind of want to shrink it down. So I'm gonna grab that middle. I'm gonna scale it down. Right now it's in. We can't see it because I've shrunk it to the point where it's gone past the scale of my model. So to see it, I'm gonna hit this transparency button. So now when I scale it, you can still see it, but the rest of everything else is in this transparency mode. All right. So now I can move my object. Right. I'm gonna move it back out. Boom. Whenever I'm rotating, I'm holding down shift to snap to whatever view I'm trying to get to. This makes it easier for me to work, right? If I'm not locking that axis, so I can lock it here, boom, shift. I'm gonna then drag this bad boy down, right? Right? Boom, shift. All right, and now what I want to do is I want to rotate. I could go to the rotate, right? But all of it's now kind of encompassed inside this one tool. So I'm just going to rotate this ring here, then rotate my model, then maybe scale it down a little bit more to where the ring now fits into the nose. Now if I turn off my transparency, we've got the ring nice and in place. Right now if I wanted to maybe move it further down so we get more of a boom. Maybe if I want to, if I wanted to dangle a little bit more, right? Let's pull this bad boy down like so. Boom. All right. The cool thing about this is if I hit, is it Control D? If I, yeah, it's Control Shift and D. If I hit Control Shift and D, I duplicate whatever that subtool is. And it's cool because now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use that same exact ring. I'm just going to pull it out here. I'm going to use it for an earring. All right. And the thing is with these kind of things, I'm going to only do it on one side. And the reason I'm going to do it on one side is because I'm going to use that subtool master that we have, right? I'm going to use that subtool master. And with the subtool master, guess what I'm going to do? I'm just going to mirror it to the other side, and I don't have to do all of that work all over again. All right. So I'm just going to pull my earrings in place. All right. And pull these earrings right in place. Maybe this one's rotate a little bit. Let's see if it looks natural. I'm going to rotate it down a little bit more. Yeah, that looks more natural. All right. I'm going to do Control Shift. Actually, let me show you another way. Let's see if it still works. See if I can show you another way to is it Control? Oh no. Alright, so I'm just going to duplicate it again. There is a way to duplicate it within itself because I want to keep this in the same subtool, right? In the sense of so that whenever I mirror it, it just mirrors everything over all at once. All right. So I'm going to just duplicate it again. But there is a way to do what I'm trying to do, which is just it's like a shift drag. Is it shift and control? No. There's a shift drag that lets me just duplicate it from one side to the other. I just can't remember what it is right now. But we will continue with this and then just duplicate it this way. And then I'll just move this guy down like so. Let's see, is 2 enough? Let's do one more. Let's duplicate it and then boop. And another thing is, right, what makes them not as interesting is if they're all the same size. So I'm just going to make them different sizes just to give myself a little bit of interest, a little variation. So maybe make this one a little smaller. Maybe make this guy, whoops, then make this guy a little bigger maybe, right? Just give them a little bit of variation so they're not the same. and maybe even rotate them a little bit differently, right? Just so I have something a little more interesting than what I currently have. So just so that they're not all super uniformed. Oops. Oops. All right. Let's rotate this bad boy. Boom, like that. All right. So now what I'm gonna do is, because I couldn't make them all in the same subtool, and move this guy over just to make sure that it's protruding the ear. All right. So one thing I can do now is, before I even do all that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to select our character, maybe do a little sculpting on him, right? And because we've added this new subtool, these new tools and this new geo to our model, what we can now do is go into our model itself, and because of how ZBrush works, it'll actually interact with these things. So what I want to do now is kind of bring this guy a little bit more to life. And the way I do that is by, let me go BCB, let's do our clay buildup tool, right? And what I'm going to start doing is kind of building that around the ear, right? And what this does is makes it look more natural, right? Like the ear itself either formed around the earring, or the earring itself has like kind of made an indent into the skin, right? This just is gonna give our models a little more realism, right? Don't just put things around your model and be like, all right, I put a spear here and it doesn't interact with him in any way, shape, or form, right? Everything, right? Everything and everything is connected. If it's touching you, it's affecting you in some way, shape, or form, right? When clothes are put on your skin, it doesn't just stay stiff, right? It folds and conforms to your body. When you wear earrings and even rings and wristwatches, think about it this way. When you put your wristwatch on and you wear a watch for a long time, it's going to leave an indent into your skin. It's going to leave an impression, right? So you've got, as the artist, you have to start thinking about little things like that. How do those things affect the model, right? Once you start doing things like that, your models will start looking much, much more realistic, because now you're thinking about how this thing lives its life. Whoops. Whoops, 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 whoops. Whoops, whoops. All right. You're thinking about how this thing lives its life, how it's existing in the world, you know, has it been weathered in any way, right? So you're thinking about all of those things while you're modeling, right? If this thing lived outside, what would it look like? If this thing lived inside, what would it look like, right? Is has he gotten into some fights where he's gotten some chunks taken out of his ear? You're thinking about all of these things, right? Does he have a little skin cancer? Maybe he has a little melanoma, right? You don't. You're just trying to, start to think of stories. Like, if you're making characters, you want to think about what the story is with your characters, right? I'm teaching you guys how to model using real humanoid, people right now, but all of that stuff is supposed to transfer into your character work. All right. Oops, my bad. So that's what you guys want to start thinking about, is how all of these pieces connect when we're adding these little details to our model here. All right. So now, as you guys can see, what I did on that side is, because I have the symmetry on, it's working on this side as well, right? And I haven't duplicated those earrings to the other side yet, just because I can do this now, right? I can't see what's going on that other side, but I can do this. I'm going to just maybe indent this a little bit, smooth this out, indent this guy a little bit, smooth it out, indent this guy a little bit, give myself a little pocket to work with, then shift to smooth it out, right? You guys understand. You guys are seeing the process in action. It's not rocket science. It's not, It's just a little bit of clay. You pull up, you build up, you knock it back. Build up, knock it back. Alt, right, is doing the difference. You build up, you knock it back, right? Build up a little bit, knock it back. All right, so now if I go back over here, you can see how some of those changes have affected the model. All right, so now let's go back to our rings here. All right, so what I want to do is I want to merge these guys down and then do a subtool transformation on them. So I'm going to go into my merge right here in my subtool panel. I'm just going to scroll down over here till I see this guy right here where it says merge. So there's a bunch of different things we can do when we merge a model, right? There's a few different actions that we can take. We can merge it down, we can merge similar, we can merge visible, and we can weld everything, right? Based on, we can weld merge tools, or we can enable UVs in the merge subtool, right? The ones that you guys are going to be wanting to focus on are these first three right here. What we want to do is we don't want to merge everything that's visible, because what that's going to do is everything that's turned on, it's going to merge it into one subtool. We do not want to do that. All right. Do we want to merge things that are similar? So like all those rings, it would merge all of those rings together, including this one, because they have the similar geometry. I made all of these rings out of this ring. So they're going to be merged together because they're similar. What I want to do actually is merge down, right? Because what that's going to do is it's going to merge this guy, right? When I have this guy selected, it's going to merge it down, boop, and it's going to merge it to the one right under it. And then I'm going to do it one more time, merge down, boop, hit OK. And now all of these have now been merged into one subtool. All right. So now with this one subtool, I can go into my Z plugins. All right. I've got my Z plugins here. I'm going to go into my subtool master, right? And you guys remember, if we go to our mirror tools, we can then mirror it on the X axis, and voila. Just like that, we've added some ring detail to our model, right? Our character now has these cool earrings that he is wearing, he or she is wearing. I don't know. It's kind of a genderless alien right now. All right, let's see. So now we've got some of these rings in, and that's kind of what I wanted, where it's like you can kind of start to see, you know, like, all right, it's kind of building more of a story for this guy. All right. So the next thing I want to do is I want to start adding some of these wrinkles that I have over here. I want to show you guys how I did it. All right. So I'm going to select our character. All I did to select it without going to the panel is I held down Alt and I clicked on the subtool I wanted to select. So if I click Alt and I click a subtool, it's going to take me right to that subtool. Remember that. That's a little tip, hint. Whenever you're like, I don't want to have to scroll through this every time to find my model. Well, just alt click it and it'll take you right to it. All right. So now let's take a look at some of these subdivisions that we've got so far. Right now, if your model is super low, you might need one or two more subdivisions. And my subdivision count isn't crazy high right now. It could probably go up one more if we're doing some like really high detailing stuff, but this is more than enough. Like this should get us some good models. I might, you know what, for you guys, because I care about you guys so much, right? I'm going to divide it one more time just so you guys see how crisp some of these details can start to come out. All right. So we just divided one more time. All right. I'm going to remove my poly frame so now you guys can see, right? See what we got going. All right, so the next step for this bad boy is whenever it comes to detailing things like this, there's a few different things that you can do. Right? If you come over here to your alpha tab, all right, you've got all of these alphas that come with it. Some of these are good for doing some detail stuff. Some of it, it's not. All right. So, what I usually do is I will go right here. He does, right now I have the brush selected because it comes with kind of like a squarish alpha. But what I usually do is I'll go to my stroke parameters here. I click on it and I go on to something called drag select. And what drag select means is instead of drawing, I showed you guys this the first week. Instead of drawing on, I drag on the shape. So this is what the freehand does. So whenever I freehand draw with that, that's what it does. Whenever I drag select, I drag out that alpha. I drag it out. All right. So there's a few different ways to add those details. So what I do is usually I will drag it out. So I will go here, and I'm not going to even use any of the custom ones that I've made or anything like that for skin and detailing, but there are a bunch online that you can find. Like there's a bunch of free avenues where you can go to sites. They've got skin alphas and nose alphas, and what a lot of the really professional guys do is they have like there's different scans out there that exist in the world of literally people's skin, their cheek skin, their mouth skin, their forehead skin. Like it literally categorizes it, and people then use those as the alphas for those. So it's almost one for one of what a cheek would be. All right. So for details like this, what I like to do is I'll grab something like one of those alphas, or let's see, this alpha 22 is pretty good. It kind of looks like veins a little bit, so you can do it two different ways, right? With this stuff. All right, so you can use it as like kind of like a veiny kind of structure that comes on, right? Which is sometimes what I like to do is I'll use it as, come on, just stay straight, as like kind of like something to build some vascular. Now I'll kind of smooth it out, right? Because you want it to be there, but you don't want it to be too noticeable, right? So now you can see it looks like he's got like veins under his skin or something like that, right? But you don't want to leave it ever at this full blast, right? I'm being way too obvious with it. I'm gonna shift, right? Smooth, knock it back. Now what that looks like is now it looks like, ooh, the skin's on top of it. It's covering it up. It looks like there's something more interesting going on. You don't want to be hitting people over the head with this information. You want to be subtle with it, all right? You want to vary the size a little bit too. So I'm just going to boom like that. Just knocking it back, and I'm putting it in different places right now. All right, as you guys can see, some of the problems that you're gonna run into if it's too angular, right? Like if you notice, like these lines are just, your veins don't work like this, right? So to reduce and to combat that, you want to smooth it out, right? So if I do something like this, I'm gonna want to smooth it out, right? So it's not so angular, all right? Boom. So, and another thing is right now it's on Z add, right? If I do Z sub, I can start to, cut into the mesh itself. So I'm going to hold Alt, right? Now I can start to get what looks more like, right? What looks kind of like the skin, right? All right, so I might go in back in here. Now I want to look for. There's one that it's like a bunch of that kind of looks more like pores, looks pores-y a little bit. This one's not bad. So like this is alpha 20, right? And it's just adding a little bit of noise, just a little bit of surface noise, right? You want to smooth that out too. You don't want it to be too strong, like I told you guys, right? And the idea of this stuff is you're layering a lot of this information, right? It's just layers. You're building layers on layers. Now it looks like he kind of has, kind of like a 5 o'clock shadow, you know, kind of layering this stuff in, bringing it in, knocking it back down. All right. So, and this is just using, right, the drag rectangle, and then just some basic alpha, and I'm just dragging it on to my model, right? And the bigger I drag it, right, the you see how big that roughness is. But because it's skin, you got to remember these are very minute details, so we might want to just kind of place it like that, right? And if you look at your own skin, there are different parts of your body where the pores are bigger than other parts of your body. All right? So that's what we're trying to mimic here. Right? And if you can mimic that accurately, well, trust me, you will get a job. Trust me, there will people who will hire you to do that every single day. So you just want to start, you know, adding some of this info, some of this cool roughness, right? And you can go and do a quick pass, right? What a quick pass is I just go over the entire thing, right? Real quick, fast, real kind of quick. Just a quick pass of this, right? This is one layer, right? Like I said before, you're building these in layers, all right? So you just kind of want to get a lot of this information on there real quick, right? And another thing that I haven't showed you how to do is I haven't showed you how to put these on layers, because if you put a lot of this stuff on layers, then what we can do is we can knock it back. We can reduce the opacity on different channels of it and use that as kind of like a layer based system. So like as you guys can see, I'm just kind of throwing these on top, right? I might make a big one, then make like a little one right on top of it, just to give me a little more variation here, right? Slowly, surely, just kind of building up this info. For this back kind of area, I'm just gonna go bananas. I'm just gonna go make some big ones, then smooth a lot of this stuff out. Whoops. There we go. All right. My back facing was turned on, so everything I was doing in the front was kind of coming onto the back. So I'm gonna have to fix that in the settings. But as you guys can see, this is, this is just another part of the process. Let's maybe do something on those. All right. You guys can see just building in, just throwing in some of this noise, some of this crevices. Right? And there's a lot of philosophies as to why people either do it in the model, like I'm doing right now, or do it just in the texture. Sometimes it's hey, it's faster for me to just do it in the texture and not worry about it here. Just take the model itself to like a base, right? Like a decent level, and then just finish the rest of the model in some sort of texturing package that we use, right? Like that's one philosophy. Another philosophy is, hey, you want this stuff in the model because, well, now if I go in and I do maybe let's do a render with like ambient occlusion and stuff like that. Like all of that detail kind of is baked into the mesh. The ambient occlusion works for it, right? All of the you're getting a lot of this stuff into the cavities and it's in the model, whereas the other is it's kind of like faking it to make it, right? But you know, the for me, it's whatever gets the job done, right? As long as the client is happy, right? If this is a job for us, well then do whatever you want, right? But if it's a job for a client, my take is always, well, what does the client want? Is you know what do they want to see? That's all that matters, right? Your job is to deliver to the client what they want. Your job isn't to make something you like, right? And if that's the name of the game, well, the name of the game is getting to the end as fast as possible. All right. So, as you can see, like all of those details that I sculpted in, they show up in here, right? Whenever, right, and this shading kind of shows you what I'm talking about. Where, like in a model where you would just do this in the texture, you wouldn't see all of this on the model necessarily. You wouldn't get all of this on the actual model. But with this method, oh man, it's all here. All right. And what I mean by the cavities, you can see like the dark areas, those are the cavities, right? You're getting all of that. This geometry is actually pushed in, right? So, few things to think about whenever you're doing your own models. All right, so let's change this texture back to something that I can. Well, this looks kind of cool. Very cool, interesting kind of vibes going on here. Let's go to my gray metallic guy here. All right, and you guys can see. I don't know how well it is for you guys to see it on your screen, right? Like it's starting to feel a little more realistic. Like he's got actual skin on him, right? It's starting to kind of come together. All right. So here's where I would then again, right, on top of this, now I'm boom. Now I'm adding some of these back into it. All right. Thing is, you may knock it back and be like, man, that just it didn't disappear. Trust me, subtlety is so key for a lot of this work. It's so like subtlety is so important. All right. So now, like let me. And there's even some of these other ones that you can use to like add like a scar or let's see. Let's increase the intensity, and I'm gonna do Z sub. Right. You can do something like kind of make it look like he's oh shit. So if you wanted to give him like a scar or something, or some deeper cracks, right? You can start to cut into it a little more. Right? Let me shift a little bit, knock that back, right? BCB clay tool, build it up a little bit, but I don't want to build it up too much. Right, I'm gonna knock this back down all the way, maybe 3. Right, I'm just gonna BCS, no BCL. Right. Just gonna whoops. Let's take this down to 1, 2 or 1, right? what I'm doing is those because of those new indents I created. Now I want to go in and start having it affect the model for real. So maybe increase this to maybe, whoops, 5 maybe. Oh. And then, right, you guys see what I'm doing? Just kind of just bringing that into the fold a little bit. Right, just so it looks a little more natural. Right, I'm using some of these things that the ZBrush gives me, but I'm also going in to enhance the model myself. That's my job. That's your job, right? The tools are here to help you, but then you're supposed to go in yourself, right? And add the detail. All right? So now I'm going in, I'm adding the folds, the wrinkles myself, right? Wherever that little thing kind of cut it up, I'm adding a little bit more flesh to it just to kind of flesh it out, right? Just to kind of help me flesh it out a little bit more. Right? It's not like I went in and went crazy, but just something a little more. Just something. It's subtle, but it's gonna help out in the normals. It's gonna help our model look a little more realistic. All right. So this is kind of what I'm talking about when you're showing your model just a little bit of love. Just show it a little bit of love, right? And that's what I want you guys to do is like whenever you're getting into this stuff, right? Like be with an open mind, right? You're not gonna learn if you're distracted by a bunch of different things and you're trying to do 15 million things at once. Modeling is one of those things that until you get it, you're not gonna get it. So you just gotta keep doing it, right? You just gotta keep doing it. And even these little things are starting to maybe inspire me to kind of get a little more, some of uh, that shape story kind of going on throughout the rest of the eye. All right. So I'm working with what I think Bob Ross calls it happy accidents. Right now you're getting some happy accidents that's going on. That's giving me a little bit more, a little more. All right. Just give me a little more life. And shift, knock it back, shift, knock it back, shift, knock it back. All right. All right. Time is it now? It's already 1 o'clock. All right. So yeah, let's see. We've got some details going on our ear here. Let me add a little bit more, a little extra right here, just because if it's pulling down right here, we might have a little bulge right here. All right. Similar right there. Right there. And you guys were like, you can't even see that. Well, you can't see it, but it's still there. Right? It just makes the model feel more complete. All right. So I'm paying attention to my model, right? You guys can see now. Like now it looks like this little piece of skin is actually conforming to that ring. Right? Just little things like that, right? And you can even do the same with this nose over here where you know it's just that's a little harder to see, so might not really mess with it, but everybody's gonna go into our character's nostrils unless that's what the game's about. But things like this do definitely help start to make your model look more real, start to bring it out more, right? Now it looks like he's got like kind of like skin pores, and these aren't even ones that I downloaded. There's some that you can download that are like one for one, like someone's cheek, someone's face. So like they get pretty in depth with some of this stuff. So I like our. I'm starting to like our silhouette value too. It looks pretty interesting. All right. So today, yeah, we spent time just kind of adding some more details to our character. We uh, we added some accessories. We gave him some rings and stuff. So I would say that you guys should do the same to your model. Go start testing out some of these detailing alphas, the Damien standard, all the tools that you might need to start detailing some of this stuff, and look at the alphas that you can use to start adding detail to your stuff. All right. Does anybody have any questions for me? No questions for le professor? Okay. All right. If you guys don't have any questions for me and this stuff is